All right, here we go. This one is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. This is by Gail Honeyman. And how did I run into this book? It came up as like a suggestion on my Libby app when I was looking for reading materials. I just kind of on the Libby app, you know how it is. You scroll down and you just kind of look for whatever grabs your eye. And I don't know what it was about this book that grabbed my eye. I can't even remember what I was thinking, but I put it on hold, and it had one of those little like four-leaf clovers around it. I wasn't supposed to get the book for like another 6 months or something like that, but it had one of those jump the line, reserve the book, get it immediately. You can have it for 7 days and then get rid of it. So I was like, all right, it's on my reading list, might as well do it. So that's how I got it. And apparently this book is like so popular that Reese Witherspoon put it into her book club. Apparently she has a book club that's like about strong women characters, strong women authors. And this, for the most part, kind of meets both of those guidelines. So I guess they're going to make this into a movie. I don't know when that's coming out. It'll probably be like a romantic comedy kind of a thing. That's kind of what I think it'll end up being. I'm going to do kind of two sections. I'm going to do a spoiler-free section where I kind of talk about whether it's a good book or not, whether you should read it, whether I liked it, and then a spoiler version where I talk about some of the things that happen in the book that I want to talk about. So you might hear some people in the background because they're like, I live in a condo and right next door they're like drilling into the wall or doing something. I'm not exactly sure what they're doing, but anyway, hopefully the mic won't pick up too much of that stuff, but you'll probably still hear some drilling. This book, I gave it 2.5 stars. Totally not a bad book. It's just kind of it's kind of a fluffy, feel-good read. That's kind of, I think, what it wanted to be for the most part. I don't think it was trying to be like a timeless classic. I think it was just trying to be, a fun book with some serious themes that kind of keep you engaged, throughout the book. There's, a couple of hinted at mysteries that the author invites you to kind of figure out before they actually are revealed, and they're super duper predictable. I mean, they couldn't be more obvious the way that the story is written. So I think Gail wanted you to figure out what was going on before she let it out of the bag officially towards the end of the book. It's a fun, quirky little book. The main character is kind of, I'm a fan of The Big Bang Theory, and the main character is essentially, in my mind, what Sheldon Cooper would be if he was a woman and he lived in Scotland. I think they live in this. I think the book takes place in Scotland. So if Sheldon Cooper was a woman and lived in Scotland and didn't have his support group of all of his friends, this is what he would be like. And if he had a discernible sex drive. And she's really quirky. She doesn't really understand certain social behaviors. She doesn't know social etiquette. She gets herself in situations where she's completely naive as to what's going on. But she's also a savant in that she's really well read. She has a large functioning vocabulary, and constantly throughout the book she's flexing her vocabulary skills to be as literate and understandable as she possibly could be. The book is about, the main themes of the book are loneliness, isolation, what it means to be vulnerable, how to forgive yourself, how to heal wounds, both psychologically and emotionally. I am reading this book on the heels of The Catcher in the Rye, and The Catcher in the Rye has, it is a classic, and it's like I couldn't help but compare the two books. Not because they have similarities, both in how the main character is built, what their kind of family lives are like, their family histories. There are some, it's not like a 1-to-1 ratio, but there are similarities. the way that they view the world, they're both kind of depressed. They have, difficulties interacting with people because of the faults they see constantly in other people. Um, but one of them, Catcher in the Rye is this classic, and Eleanor Oliphant is, like I say, it's a feel-good kind of romantic comedy type of book with some dark themes thrown in for added value, I guess. And I don't know, I feel as though the big thing that really separates the two, I mean, there's multiple things that really separate the two. They don't deserve to be compared like on a one-to-one, but one of the things that I feel as though made Catcher in the Rye so intense as a book, what makes it so rereadable, is that it has a character that never lets up being who he is. Holden Caulfield is Holden Caulfield. And he is Holden Caulfield when you want him to be other things. He is unrelentingly rebellious and angsty and depressed and annoying and judgmental, and all the worst parts of his personality are always coming to the forefront. And Eleanor, she gets to have, all of these parts of her personality that are really endearing. And, why not? There's no reason why a character should be unrelentingly dislikable or disagreeable. But Eleanor gets to be disagreeable when it's good for the book, and she gets to be really agreeable when it's good for the book. And she gets to be socially naive when it's good for the book, and she gets to be socially normal when she needs to be. She kind of runs the gamut. And so there are things about her character that could have been, I think, explored to an extent that were perhaps more interesting but less feel good. And I think that's what Gail really wanted. She wanted a character that was lovable, and she really is. Your heart goes out to this character from the beginning to the end because of everything that she has to go through. So I'm going to talk about some things that actually happen in the book. So if you don't want any spoilers, now's the time to just say, okay, I'm done with listening to you talk if you haven't turned it off already. So, okay. There are things that happen, especially in the latter half of the book, that it's not that they don't make, well, it is, it's that they don't make sense to me personally. I mean, and some of them are little things and some of them are big things. So like one of the little things is that she, at one point, she is gifted a cat, and this cat has been placed in like a cardboard box or something and abandoned by its owners, and the box was set on fire. But somehow, in ways that I'm not exactly sure that I remember how, I think one of the other characters' roommates was able to save the cats. I think there were multiple cats, but it doesn't matter. There's a cat that got burns on its body, got hair ripped out of its stomach because of the burns, and it's just in really bad shape. And so if you're the type of owner that is willing to burn your cat alive, you probably didn't treat the cat very well when you had it. So I think it's fair to say that when Eleanor Oliphant comes into contact with this cat should be totally traumatized. It should be spooked. It should be easily spooked. It should be, very weary and should not trust humans and should not trust anybody that it's around. And it takes to Eleanor like that. Now, this cat is somewhat of a symbolic reincarnation of her dead sister, and so maybe there's some type of supernatural bond that Eleanor has with the cat. You could probably argue that. But for me, I think that this cat could have been way more skittish. They could have earned the relationship that they had between each other instead of just immediately connecting with each other like that, as if it was the easiest thing in the world. I have a cat. Cats are super temperamental. Even if they like you, they don't necessarily want to hang out with you all the time and show you an endearing attitude. So totally weird that the cat was just, yeah, totally, you're my best friend. There is a character in the book that Eleanor starts stalking, and she stalks the character early on in the book. So you already know that Eleanor's got some things loose upstairs because she does not realize how strange her behavior is in that she's stalking this guy. And once she finally realizes later on in the book that she shouldn't be stalking him, that it's a bad idea, she also kind of comes to realize that this guy is kind of an asshole. And I feel as though, why did he need to be an asshole? Why did he? It's, you know, it's like, because he's an asshole, it makes it easier for you to let him go and to kind of, I don't know, forgive a little bit her really creepy behavior. But if he was this really, really nice guy and this really generous person who had been stalked, and we had to kind of actually see her confront him, because, I mean, she stopped stalking because she realizes he's an asshole. But what if he was a great guy? What if he was, you know, this person that you liked even more than Eleanor, and you wanted to see, you know, what happened when they actually meet, because maybe, you know, he would be a good guy for Eleanor. But then he realizes how creepy she is, and he freaks out at her. I don't know, I'm doing some type of fan fiction right now, but, you know, what would have been the repercussions if he was actually a good guy? It would have made for a completely different series of interactions between those two characters, perhaps. And we would have seen some uncomfortable, intense scenes where she had to confront her really, you know, creepy behavior. But we don't get to see any of that because, well, the musician's he's an asshole, and so it's good for him that he got kicked out of his band before they made it big and go on tour. And, you know, I don't know. I think that some interesting storytelling could have happened if he was actually, he was written differently, if he was less two-dimensional and less easily hateable. And then by that same token, you have kind of the lead male protagonist who comes in, and it's the kind of a Gary Stu type character where Raymond, who's this IT guy, kind of takes a liking to, not you know, an affectionate, intimate liking to Eleanor, but you know, he takes her out for lunch all the time, and he offers to pay for drinks when they go out to bars, and they have this significant experience together where they visit an old man in the hospital after they kind of save his life after he falls out on the street. And so they have all of these, you know, experiences together, and he's always everything that Eleanor needs him to be in every moment. You know, his only real character flaws are that he eats with his mouth open and that he smokes a lot. But other than that, he's like the perfect guy. Oh, and maybe he's a little bit overweight. He's a little chunky, and he has stupid shoes. These are all the things that Eleanor can like complain about, but they're also superficial. He doesn't have anything that's wrong with him in any meaningful way. You know, that you eat with your mouth open is a pet peeve. That you have, you know, that you wear sneakers with dress clothes when you should be wearing dress clothes, that's a pet peeve. That's not an actual character flaw. That's just, well, he's kind of a dumpy little guy who likes to play video games. Okay, whatever. Anyway, by that same token, interesting storytelling could have happened if the character was a little bit more fleshed out, was, you know, less perfect in all the ways that he needed to be perfect. But like I say, this is kind of a romantic comedy type feel to the story, and it's, you know, it's a feel-good story. It's not trying to be a timeless classic, I don't think. Okay, so this is the last one. This is the last one, and then I'm done with this. The final, like, I don't know, 10 pages of the book, maybe, they explore what really should have been, in my mind, the main focus of the whole story. But, you know, like I say, I'm not a writer, and I'm not trying to write fan fiction, but in the very end of the story, you find out that Eleanor, who has been speaking with her mother every Wednesday her entire life, since she's gotten out of foster care, she has been speaking with her mother every Wednesday night, and her mother, it turns out, is a total hallucination. She's not speaking with anybody on the telephone. She's just speaking with herself and you know, a figment of her imagination. But these hallucinations are always, they're never described as hallucinations until the last 10 pages of the book. And the whole time that she's talking about them, I mean, this is a real flesh and blood person. She's having real conversations with this person. It's never, ever even, you know, mildly referred to as something that she is just kind of invoking the essence of her mother and what her mother might say. She's having, you know, actual conversations with her. And so this is a a diagnosable hallucination that Eleanor is having, and there is a lot of implications that come behind that. But as soon as we find that out, which by the way is totally predictable, this twist was totally foreseeable. I knew it was going to happen, long before halfway through the book. It seemed pretty obvious to me that her mother does not exist. She never appears in the room with anybody else, any other character. She doesn't even appear in the room anytime with um, Eleanor. It's always kind of hinted at that maybe she's in a mental institution, or maybe maybe her mother's in a mental institution, or maybe her mother's in like a penitentiary or something like that. That's kind of the illusion that they try to suggest, but it becomes obvious, if you're paying attention, that a very likely outcome for a trope like this is that the mother's going to be a figment of her imagination. It's a hallucination. And so they don't explore that in any significant way after the reveal. And there are so many implications for Eleanor's character, beyond the fact that she's been depressed this whole time, beyond the fact that she has repressed childhood memories, beyond the fact that she is traumatized and has to live with that trauma. She also has very real hallucinations. I mean, she's hearing voices in her head. And that needs, anyway, that she needs some help. I guess she is seeing a therapist. Maybe she'll talk to her therapist after the book. Maybe we'll get Eleanor Oliphant now really is completely fine in the sequel, and they explore her hallucinations with her mother in therapy. Who knows? Anyway, I enjoyed talking about this, even though it wasn't my favorite book, but it was a feel-good book. Maybe the movie will be great. Who knows? Let me know what you guys think of this if you've read the book. And yeah, hope to see you soon.